Hello, this is Rob Mazak, and I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to the Life by Mazak podcast channel. Here on this channel, anything is possible. Any subject will and usually is discussed, and there's no telling how this message will unfold as we work through an idea, through an experience, or through a thought. These subjects come from the vast amount of information and experience through spirit, through life lessons, and from working with a lot of other people. Scripts are never used on this channel, and the message simply unfolds as the subject is discussed. Follow along and see where it leads us, or more specifically, where it leads me. These podcasts are produced in the hopes of helping others to benefit, to grow, and to excel in their own human experience. At Life by Mazak, we work towards helping you achieve wellness for your mind, your body, and your soul using many specialized services. Services that include psychic medium and tarot readings, quantum healing hypnosis, past life regression, intuitive Reiki healing, life coaching, and many other services. If you enjoyed this podcast, please click the like button and share this with others. Our goal is to reach as many people as we can with the knowledge that is shared on this podcast channel. Good day, everybody. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody, a phone call from somebody, or communication of any kind where some very simple information or statements were made and it just kind of blew your mind and boggled your mind and really made you think and make you go, I never thought about that. I wonder if that's true. So I had that kind of event that happened to me today. My brother called me out of the blue on his way to work, and he had said something about having watched one of my videos that I have on my YouTube channel, and it is a video, about 30 minutes or so, of me doing a Reiki demonstration on how I do Reiki and what kind of things I pick up on and how I do it, all that. And what was interesting is he didn't really talk about what he learned from it or, that was really cool or any ideas about it. What he brought up was that I was wearing a black shirt. And I thought for a second as he continued his conversation. He said, "Did you know that black is the combination of every color there is?" Well, I guess I really didn't know that. And I was wondering if that was true. And I've spent the last few hours doing other things, but it's been like hanging in the back of my mind. So I figured I'd do a little research online to see if that's true. I kind of figured it was, and I figured he'd already looked it up. So I don't read a lot of things. However, I want to read a couple of things that I found about the color black. And it sounds like, in fact, it is the combination of all colors. So here is one definition that I found really interesting. Black is not considered a color because it is achromatic, meaning it has no hue. Black absorbs all light in the color spectrum, making it the absence of visible light. Black is not on the color wheel because it is not a color, but rather the absorption of all colors. All black pigments and dyes are made up of the combination of other pigments in specific combinations to reflect the least amount of light possible. I was like, oh my gosh, black really is, in a way, the combination of all other colors. That really kind of blew my mind. I never thought about that. I always wonder why I like the color black. But we're going to get back around to some other ideas about this that I have come across for me. But it seems like the color black and the idea is different depending on how you categorize that. So in art, it is in fact the absorption of all visible wavelengths of light, which means that all the colors possible produce black. I don't know if you need all the colors to do that, but it sounds like by definition so far that you do. But on the other hand, in the area of art, the white is the absence of any pigment or color, so it basically reflects back the light. So like a mirror, I guess. But if you're looking at physics, it's the opposite apparently. White light contains all visible wavelengths, while black is the absence of visible light. It's just interesting. So here we got a lot of different ways of looking at it. And so philosophically, it really is kind of a different idea. In the way they talk about it in these definitions is that it really depends on the perception or the receiver or the person who's observing it. So we're definitely going to circle back around on that idea. Always wondered why I liked the color black. I like to wear black, and I don't know why. A lot of things we do are very subconscious acts, based on what is going on internally in our mind, our programming, all of that stuff. And as I usually do, the background of the mind is that there's at least two major subdivisions. That conscious part of your mind that you used in your awakening state to control what's going on. It's like you have a little bit of control of your mind, about 10% or so. Then you have the subconscious or the unconscious part of your mind, which is all the programming and all the things that you learn through habits, driving, eating, walking, writing, all kinds of things that you don't have to think about because it's just a program running in the background. A lot of what we perceive to be our truth, our ideas, our beliefs, what we think is true, comes through mostly that programming that sits in the subconscious mind. All the things that are kind of hardwired in there. Not that they can't be unwired or changed, but it does take time. It does take effort. And we might circle back and talk about that a little bit. It's one of my favorite subjects. I talk about it on almost every podcast, I think, because I think it's important. The perception of colors is what really caught my eye initially, because it says that in the philosophical definitions or explanations, it really says that how you perceive the color is really what produces the qualities or the combination of colors or the ingredients of that particular color. Because everybody sees colors different. There's people that are actually color blind. They only see black and white. Monochromatic, I guess you'd say. And other people see color so vividly that it's just, pops out really strongly, and they have a hard time concentrating, and it's difficult to get through life because it's just too much. And then there's those average people, like I would probably put myself in, where colors are fairly normal, they're distinct. Yes, they're very easy to distinguish apart from each other. But I can tell you, when we are going to paint a room, that the way my wife and I view colors and how they go together are definitely not the same. Everybody has their ideas of what colors are and what they should be and how they're made up and how we perceive them. And I just thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it. I never really thought about it that way until my brother brought up this thing. And it's amazing that sometimes we get a lot of lessons in life when somebody just off the cuff mentions something. And it's like, it's hard to get around not wanting to figure that out or do something about it or learn about it. And I don't like to let things go past me without taking everything as a lesson or an idea or maybe a new direction. But the other thing I was really thinking about too is that I like to wear black. And I think we've talked about this before. I am not hardcore empathic by definition, but more empathic than the average person, and more empathic on purpose. But I do tend to absorb people's energy in a lot of ways. Like if I'm at work all day long and I'm having conversations and interactions with people, it's very draining in a lot of ways. I get home and I am just dog tired. I tell my wife it's like I've run out of words. I've used them all up. They're done. So we're going to have to talk a little bit later. And that makes sense now that it's almost like my subconscious expression of wearing dark colors, especially black. Of course, black goes with everything. You don't have to worry about matching anything. It's kind of hard to mismatch against black, right? or just wear all black. But it makes sense that our subconscious does outwardly express things in a way that we don't even realize we're doing. And that's also a lot of what you can bring about when you're doing a reading from somebody, or if you're reading somebody, picking up their energy and looking at them and analyzing them and realizing some of the subconscious outwardly signs that they have. I think the other color that I would say that I would wear more often is pure white. Not pants, but shirts. So it's like I'm either a really dark shirt or a very light or white colored shirt. Hardly ever wear shirts that are kind of in between. I guess it depends on what kind of energy I'm planning on putting out that day subconsciously. But I guess if I'm wearing a white shirt, and white tends to have a mirror effect, perhaps that's more of a protection against some of the energy that I'm going to bump across during that day. I'm not sure. I guess that would make sense. But it is interesting, though. I think the black is probably more interesting to me than anything else. And we do seem to equate black and dark to bad energy. And I think in this case it's more of an enlightenment on what black really is. Black is not really dark or evil. Personally, I haven't really had much of an issue with what most people would call evil or dark energy, or at least not in a way that is very scary or frightening, I guess you'd say. And perhaps maybe that is why I like wearing dark energy, or dark shirts rather, because that energy really doesn't scare me. I guess I'm not saying I align with it. That's not what I'm trying to say. I believe that it kind of represents the fact that I am not afraid of perhaps exposing myself, my weaknesses, things like that. I mean, not that I'm going to walk around and just tell everybody what my problems are, and I'm not saying that, but I'm looking and talking about subconscious expressions of why we do things. And I'm just kind of thinking out loud here as I talk about these things, because I think that we all do that subconscious expression and activities more so than you could ever imagine. When I first started doing readings for people and started doing energy work, I really didn't understand subconscious things about the body and what people do to express deep inner parts of their mind and their aura, their energy, until I really took the advice of my spirit guides and said, you need to talk your way through everything. And in those conversations, you're going to learn more about the human body than you could ever imagine from any book, from anywhere. And it has been very true. I guess I didn't see how this conversation on this podcast was going to go, but here we go. And I have learned a whole lot. Body language, where people wear their rings, where they have their jewelry, how they fix their hair, how they carry themselves, where they have issues throughout the body. Everything that is outward on a human body is really an expression of their subconscious, their inner being, their inner qualities, their inner state. And it is quite amazing, and it is actually pretty accurate once you learn to understand it. Because when you go sit down in front of somebody, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing a reading, if you're doing counseling, life coaching, working with a business partner, it is amazing the little signs and symbols and actions that people do that will make you realize what's actually happening on the inside of their mind as you're interacting with them. For example, just little things. If you are talking with somebody about a conversation and they all of a sudden kind of lean back in their chair and cross their arms, it is one of those outward signs that they are getting really bored or defensive with what you are talking about. And so every time I see that in any conversations that I'm having, I will tend to switch it up, lighten it up, change the subject, kind of work my way around to a different angle. And it's amazing to watch how those arms uncross, Their arms, they open themselves up a little bit more. And it is really cool once you learn these things. Ring placements are very, very accurate. They are a subconscious expression of what you are seeking primarily and what kind of person you are. For example, if you're looking at the right hand is the more conscious level energy, the left hand is more of the deep subconscious energy. The ring placements on the fingers mean the same thing, only deeper or conscious level. So if they're wearing a ring on their index finger, for example, it usually means that they like control. They're trying to control things. It is about control. I mean, it could be in many aspects of control, but if they're wearing it on their right hand, it means that they're really, really trying to control their life and their situations around them. The middle finger generally represents balance, or seeking balance in their life, or that's something that's important to them. The ring finger obviously has very distinct meanings on the left hand, right? Deep, meaningful, committed relationships. That's important to them. It's an outward sign. On the right, it means that they really enjoy people and they like people in their life, and they almost, in a lot of ways, need people. If they have a ring on their little finger on their right hand, it really means that there's issues with their biological father, something going on there that is unresolved, or issues. And on the left, it would be about their mother, same idea. And if they're wearing a ring on their thumb, points to dependency and or codependency. I tell you what, you can't unsee a lot of these things. And we don't always know why we see a ring or we see something that would look really good on our hands, or we think it does, and why we put it where we put it. We don't really think about that most of the time. And it's amazing to me that when you talk to people about these ring placements, and I find that it's very, very accurate, it is very, very solid on the subconscious meanings of these things. And the more you practice these things and the more you talk to people about it, you'll realize that you can really begin to learn more about people than you can by talking to them, just simply by being around them and picking up on their energy and looking at the outward signs and things like that. It doesn't surprise me that what colors you choose really talk about you. I don't know much about the other colors. All I'm talking about tonight is the color black and the color white. The color black, yes. To me, in a lot of ways, it feels like, for me anyway, that it represents the fact that I tend to bring on other people's energies, because I really do like to help people, sometimes to a fault. I have kind of learned to control that and put a lot of boundaries on it. It was a lot of hardcore learning lessons in that respect, but it does tend to talk about me. And I do like the heat. I really do like the heat. Don't like the winter whatsoever. If it gets below 70 degrees, it's almost not fun for me. And so I would probably do better in the tropics, in the jungle or something. But I guess that's why I live in Texas, because most time it's hot. And I love the heat. It just seems to be so much more tolerable for me, more comfortable for me. So perhaps the wearing of black that absorbs colors, but also heat, light rays, right? We talked about that in the definitions. It can also bring in more heat. And sometimes when it's 1,000 degrees outside, wearing black is not the best idea, because it's just going to make you more hot. The ambient temperature already is. However, it's beginning to make a lot of sense to me why I like black and why I choose that color. And I never, I guess, really thought about that before, because I've been asked that before many times, why I wear so much black. I don't even remember the answer I've given, but I don't guess I really understood it as much as I do now. And I would encourage everybody out there that you don't dismiss any messages or any ideas you get throughout your day, because I do believe that the force outside of ourselves You can give it many names. We've talked about this. It could be God, the universe, angels, whatever it is that you identify as that force or that external energy. I do believe, though, that they are there, or that energy is there to lead us and guide us, and not necessarily directly, because if they walked in or materialized in my trailer here, my RV, and gave me a solid message, well, that would be a lot easier, or too easy, really. That's like getting the answers to the test without having to study. That doesn't seem like we're going to learn anything, right? And so with that non-interference idea, they have to kind of drop in breadcrumbs and guide us externally through other ideas, which I do believe they do all the time. I do believe we get messages and information all the time. I mean, for goodness sake, we're in this medium of universal consciousness that is like the internet on steroids. And so all we got to learn to do, really, I mean, I'm making it sound simple, but is learn to tap into that and pull in that information and understand it. And so it doesn't take a lot of information or cues or breadcrumbs if you really start paying attention to understand that you are being spoken to. The conversation that my brother had, I don't think it was longer than 5 minutes. I don't think it was very long at all. I have to look at my phone, but I don't think it was. And it took that little short conversation and brought it into this great life lesson, which I obviously can't put it all into this short podcast. But I think that if you learn to pay attention, well, I know if you learn to pay attention and not miss all the signs you're getting all day long, you will have a much more fruitful and beneficial life, and you will know where you should go, and your direction in life and where you're going and how you're doing it should be a lot more clear. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to pay attention to that. I mean, we're human beings, right? We get a lot of snow blindness in a lot of ways. I've said this in podcasts before. I remember walking through the neighborhood one day with my wife, and I looked over at this van in this driveway, and I'm like, when did that van get here? I've never seen that. And she said, it's been there ever since we've moved in here, and we've been there for a long time. And I'm like, that van has been there all the time. She goes, yeah. And I'm like, I never noticed it, apparently. So we do miss things. I'm not saying that I am any better at it than everybody else. I've just tried to take a moments in my day and realize when I get a really solid message that I need to do something with it. Go research it, look it up. If I see a string of numbers, perhaps I'm going to go look up, what does an angel number 4273 mean, or whatever. And then out of that, I can get some kind of life lesson or some direction or validation about something. And I don't think that's a far stretch. I do believe that even if it's not an outside force from us, perhaps it's through our subconscious, stuff that's buried and encoded in our DNA or our very essence that is simply bleeding across and giving us direction without going directly into our conscious mind and causing us to lose focus in our day. Because I can tell you that the conscious mind does not handle very many bits of information compared to what the subconscious does. You've probably heard me say this before. The subconscious, or our mind, gets bombarded with 11 million bits of information per second, and our conscious mind can only handle 40 bits of information per second. Huge gap there, right? I do believe that if it is coming from our subconscious, which in my opinion is the hub, the internet hub to the conscious internet, cosmic internet, that it's not going to try to overload our conscious mind, because it's already overloaded, especially in our world today. So I encourage everybody to really pay attention and be on the lookout for these things. Now, I'm not saying everything that you experience in your day is a sign that you need to research all day long. I'm not saying that. But I think you will know, after you practice enough and you start paying attention, you'll know the things that really strike you, especially when you notice something like, or get a call like I did about black being every color there is. I think you will know because you can't stop thinking about it. It really just kind of sticks in your conscious mind until you do something about it. And I think then you'll know that if it's that persistent and you keep going back to it and you keep circling back around and wondering about it, maybe you should just put some time into researching it. Come on, let's just face it. The internet we have now is almost nothing you cannot find. I don't know if that's good English, but you can find just about anything on the internet. It's almost endless and eternal in a lot of ways. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't take the time to learn about things. Talking about the color black being all colors, I found that definition online on the internet. I mean, it's everywhere. And of course, there's some definitions that are different than others, but basically they're the same. Once again, I encourage you guys to put some time into your life. Live your life more on purpose. Listen and pay attention to the things that you are being given through your friends, through your coworkers, through messages you get, phone calls you get. And if it piques your interest, write it down, look it up later. You may not have time to look at it then. But I do believe that we're all in this together. We are all part of the cosmic soup. The universe or our reality, whatever this is, cannot really exist without every one of us. You cannot have a sea, you cannot have an ocean without all the individual drops. And if a lot of those drops go away, you don't have a sea or a very large sea or a very large ocean. And it's the same, I think, with us. We're all part of the equation. We all need to be part of the equation. But that also means that if we're part of the larger whole, that we have access to everything and anything. And so why are we limiting ourselves? Why are we keeping ourselves shrunk into this little mold that everybody thinks we should be? Believing what everybody says about us? Really caring about what people think about us? I don't think that's important at all. I don't personally care what anybody thinks about me and how they feel about what I'm doing. It's not my problem. It's their problem, obviously. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying my life path is my life path and it's not anybody else's. And the same for you. Not going to judge you for how you live your life. And if I don't align with other people and their ideals, then I just don't expose myself to that. I don't align with that. I don't spend time with people that don't align with what I want to do. You have to pick and choose your battles, right? Because like I said, this is individual effort that is being supported from outside of us in some way. I don't think anybody would disagree that there's not something out there. I don't think that we could have this perfect life that we have, the amazing human body, the reality we live in, whatever it is, without a designer or a creator or a manager of us and this reality, right? I encourage you guys to go to my website. I know I rambled a little bit, but I would like to work with you guys. I'd love to talk to you guys. As I say all the time, when I talk to people and I work with people, I learn just as much as you would probably learn. We all learn from each other, and that's how we become better people. My website is lifebymazak.com, lifebymazak.com. I spell it because my last name is a little different. I look forward to hearing from you guys. You will hear from me many times over. Stay strong and live your life.